Today, Timmy and I have the distinct pleasure of talking to a fellow Domer, Father John Jenkins, the 17th President of the University of Notre Dame.
Bald,
Blind,
and Buddies. Timmy, how are you tonight, buddy? It's a Thursday. We're recording on a Thursday, which is a unique situation, but our guest is one of those guests that you make time for. So how you doing, pal?
I'm doing good. Yeah, Thursday night, ready to roll, ready to record another Bald, Blind, and Buddies podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Keep tuning in for good content. Yeah, spread the word.
Yeah. And I think this one will be big with a very particular segment of the population, and by that I mean Notre Dame graduates. We have the distinct honor of talking to the former president of the University of Notre Dame, Father John Jenkins. So without further ado, it's with great honor, Timmy, as you can imagine, that we are introducing the former president of the University of Notre Dame, Father John Jenkins. Welcome, Father. It's a pleasure to have you on the Bald, Blind, and Buddies podcast. Three Notre Damers talking together, sir.
It's great to be with the two of you, John and Tim.
Thank you. Yeah,
very much appreciated.
I was telling John I was gonna change into shorts and a t-shirt when I came home, but I was like, I can't do that and talk to the president of Notre Dame. So even on this audio podcast, I'm dressing up, and I think John is too.
I'm flattered.
Indeed. Yeah. And just most people who didn't go to Notre Dame, sir, and the joke, of course, is how do you know somebody went to Notre Dame? You talk to them for 5 minutes and they'll tell you. Yeah. But for people who didn't go to Notre Dame, it probably is not relevant, but I think it's important to tell you, sir, how Timmy and I became friends. We lived next door to each other. In 116, I was in 116 Dillon. My roommate was from Fairbanks, Alaska. He was best man at my wedding. I was best man in his. And Timmy's roommate, he was in 117, was Andy Nate. And he actually was a South Bender. His mom graduated, and his brother.
And his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. But we've been friends for 30 years. We don't see eye to eye politically. I tend to, just in a nutshell, be sort of a classic liberal with a small L, free press, women's right to vote, so forth. Timmy tends to be cut out of the Reagan mold. But the premise of Bald, Blind, and Buddies is, of course, the two friends that have been friends for 30 years can still have a conversation. And Timmy's really the impressive one behind this, sir. He is not only legally blind, he's the second person to become a medical doctor legally blind. And he graduated valedictorian 27 years ago at the class of 98.
I remember that well.
Yeah. And John, you can hear John on the audio. I have a recording yelling out, "Hey, Timmy C," in the middle of my speech. And
with friends like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So welcome.
So, Father, how did you end up joining the order, the Holy Cross, and how'd you choose being a priest? How'd you choose Notre Dame, sir?
Well, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. My older brother went here, and we didn't have a previous Notre Dame connection, but it's just a great school and very, very Catholic family. So that's where I went. And Notre Dame was very important to me, is very important to me, obviously, but it did help me grow as a person, think about faith. I was a philosophy major, so I worried about all these big questions, and they had a great philosophy department, have a great philosophy department, so that helped. And when I graduated, I really wasn't sure what I'd do, but one thing that Notre Dame gave me, as well as my family education, I felt I had to, it had to be something meaningful. It couldn't just be a job for whatever. And that kind of led me to think about what that might be. It eventually led me to pray a lot, led me to join Holy Cross and become a priest. And so that's my life. I've never looked back, and I really feel fortunate, deeply fortunate for what I've done in my life.
That's great. I'm thinking about philosophy. Do you? It seems like philosophy is underappreciated these days, or at least understudied. Is there a text or an author, a philosopher that you think sheds light on our times today that people should look into?
Well, I think there's so many, and I spent a lot of my time with Aquinas and with sort of the ancient medieval philosophy, Plato and Aristotle and Augustine, people like that. But all of it, I do think I worry about our age, that we're technologically highly proficient, but sort of the key questions of life we seem quite quite at a loss for that. And I think that kind of reflected in our difficulties in society. So, I think any of those great philosophers could shed light. Philosophy is an ongoing process of thinking. There's not a set of answers, but it invites you to kind of reflect deeply on questions of life, of what's good, of purpose, and that's what I got most from it, a certain rigor in thinking about those questions.
Oh yeah.
Father, you were a professor at Notre Dame, right?
I am a professor. I'm
Oh, I
teaching
beg your pardon.
now.
Yeah, once a Marine, always a Marine kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's right.
You had a chance to travel too. You were at ND of London. Did you enjoy that experience? I ask because I had lived in London after Notre Dame, and I just adored it.
I
it
very
was a
much enjoyed
fabulous
London.
experience.
I had the opportunity to study at Oxford, so I spent most of my time there, but came into London a lot. It's, there's such a richness there in the UK, and the current culture and the history. It was a wonderful time, wonderful place.
It looks like you have been on the presidential debate
Mm-hmm.
commission. How does that come
Yeah,
to
how
be?
did that come to pass?
And what's it like?
Well, it came to pass, frankly, because in 2009, President Obama came to speak, and the Presidential Debate Commission is very much bipartisan, encourages talking across our differences, like you guys are committed to. And I think after that event, and I talked in my introduction to the president about how that was important, and I think the people on the commission thought, oh, we'll invite this guy, which they did, and I came on it, and it's been great, mainly because I've met some really interesting people from both sides of the aisle, interested in talking to one another, interested in kind of fostering discussion, constructive discussion. And if you know, it's kind of a bit in a difficult strait because former President Biden kind of decided to do an end around and do his own debate, which didn't go well for him, but he didn't go through the commission. But we'll see what happens. I believe strongly that it's important to have institutions and processes where we can talk about our differences constructively, respectfully, and I'm deeply committed to that. And the Presidential Debate Commission is a sort of outgrowth of that commitment.
Father, to that end, I appreciate that. This is a two-part question, if you'll indulge me, sir. Firstly, does Notre Dame still have the tradition? I know it was sort of informal, but we had always invited the president the year that he or she, probably in my lifetime, has been elected. Is that still tradition? Because
Eisenhower came, Kennedy didn't, Nixon didn't, Johnson didn't, Reagan did, Bush 1 did, Bush 2 did. Clinton didn't. So it's what I'm trying to say. It's a little inconsistent, and so it's we did invite Obama, and we did Biden was here on campus, and Vice President Pence was. But anyway, it's not my problem anymore.
Yeah, there's something about retiring from that stress, I would imagine.
Yeah, I got to follow up. Did those people, were they not invited or they didn't come? Like the
people, I mean, to be 100% honest with you, I mean, Nixon and Johnson was during the Vietnam War.
Right.
There's a certain point where it just would be so disruptive to have them that, it's not going to lead to anything good. And I think that was the thinking beyond that. I don't know about Clinton. Frankly, I feel right now, if you invited the current president, it would be so difficult, so contentious, so fraught that it would lead to no good. So if I were making the decision, which I'm not, I'm not sure that's a wise route. It just depends on the mood of the country and the particular leader. And I always said, and I deeply believe, commencement is about the graduates. It is about making the day special for them. And if it becomes so contentious that it's disruptive, then it just undermines what the purpose is.
Father, if you'll indulge me for just a second about commencement. When my sister had gone, she lived in Howard, was class of '91. Timmy's two sisters went as well. I remember in 1998 when we graduated, I was in the School of Liberal Arts, and at that time, Father Malloy said, class or College of Liberal Arts, please stand, and congratulations. And my father apparently turns to my mother and says, we paid that for that? We paid X number of dollars for that. But, Jimmy Carter's most famous speech as president, or one of his, was actually at Notre Dame. But to that end, how do you, because you were criticized, and, I appreciated when Obama was invited. I tend to be an Obama guy, so maybe I'm not the most objective observer. But to that end, you were criticized because, some of people objected to his stance on abortion or what have you. How do you balance, or how did you balance at the time, the demands of, say, your role with the academy and our Catholic mission and so forth? What were some of the decisions that went into that, or the points that went into that decision?
Well, I did feel it was particularly special. He was the first African American president in the country. I think that was a special moment. I don't agree with all his policies, but I think he's a public servant, a sincere public servant. So, the degree, the intensity of the criticism surprised me. I hadn't anticipated that level, frankly. And I do think it was, I'll just be frank. I can be frank now that I'm no longer president. I think it was orchestrated a bit. I don't think they wanted Obama to, his opponents didn't want Obama to get a lot of popularity and headway. So anyway, but that's life in the big leagues. I don't criticize that, but that's the way it was. But in the end, frankly, I think even people who didn't like Obama, well, we invited him, and one of my proudest days as Notre Dame is when people were trying to heckle Obama as he spoke, not people outside the university, and our students started chanting, we are ND," as if to say,
that.
we listen to people here. And I was just tremendously proud of them.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
That is. It reminds me of, in a smaller sense, the when the KKK came to South Bend in the 20s. It's like this is who we are. Right?
Yeah. We've always been, and I'm proud of this, a bipartisan place, and I hope we can stay that way. We're a place where different views come together and talk to one another respectfully. I hope it can always be that.
Are there pressures, or there's signs in the wind that you're noticing that you mentioned that?
What's that?
Anti-collaborative pressures?
Well, I'll tell you, just look around the country. I do think we're at a particularly polarized moment. I think there's little constructive dialogue going on. It's mainly scoring points. I think there are a lot of factors contributing to that. But I do believe that Notre Dame is seen, well, I know Notre Dame is seen as a place that, isn't kind of narrowly partisan, that people will invite people of different views. So I hope we can continue to do that, because I think our country badly needs it now.
Yeah, indeed.
To that end, Father, what was it like being, regardless of who the president is, regardless of who was in attendance, Justice Barrett, who to all accounts apparently is a fabulous professor at Notre Dame, and is a wonderful human being from what I've read. I don't know her personally, but what was it like to attend the swearing in of Notre Dame's first Supreme Court justice? And to that end, I think Pete Buttigieg has an outside shot at being a descendant of a president, I suppose, huh? Because his parents taught at Notre Dame. He went to Harvard, though.
Yeah, that's right. Amy is quite wonderful. What you see is what you get. She's just a person of faith. She's has the most beautiful family. Just truly beautiful, and just brilliant jurist. And so one of my proudest moments was having seeing Amy sworn in, because I think all the Supreme Court has been dominated by graduates of Harvard and Yale, and that's great. I respect those institutions; they're great institutions. But to see Notre Dame have a place, and I know there's always controversy, but I respect her as a jurist, and to have a Notre Dame graduate, a Notre Dame professor in that role, it just gives me enormous pride.
if I recall, was the swearing-in ceremony, wasn't that like during COVID era
Well,
precautions?
there were
And
two things. One was the nomination.
oh,
And
okay.
that was one of the dumbest decisions I've made as president of the University of Notre Dame. I went and, they had this person there with the white coat on, give you a test and says, "Oh, you're clean. You can take off your mask." And I did. And, and that became just, and other people did too, but that just became kind of massive story in all major in all major in all major newspapers. And so, anyway, that was dumb of me. But yeah,
Oh, Father, you didn't wear a mask? Is that I'm not
well,
familiar.
I wore a mask. I wore a mask, and then I got tested, and they says, "Oh, you're clean." And they said you can take off your mask, but it was politically engineered, frankly, by the Trump people, and I fell into it, and I had no
Hmm.
business doing that because I was not a novice at the time. I should have known that, but it was a politicized event, and I was used in that politicized event, and I let myself be used.
Father, do you have colleagues? I'm sure you do at Villanova. And the reason I ask is my wife, my sister-in-law, my
Mhm.
niece are all. My niece is currently there. My wife is a graduate. And by the way, we can talk about this towards the end. But my wife has two national titles and a pope for crying out loud. Father, in the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
10
yeah.
years, we got to get on the ball here.
Well, I know it.
Did you speak to anybody at Villanova after Father Prevost became Pope Leo?
Well, I'm good friends with the president there, and I just called him and congratulated them, and I know they're very proud as they should be, and so that's great. Yeah, yeah, that's I applaud them. I think it's wonderful, and that's wonderful. That's all I have to
Were you
say.
as surprised as I, sir? I'm sorry to interrupt, but were you surprised as I that I figured it'd be a cold day in hell before there was an American pope, but you should never say never. I suppose I was surprised.
You and everybody else. I think everybody's like, you
Yeah.
know, but the thing about it is most of his ministry, in fact, nearly all of his ministry was in Peru and in Rome. So he was American, but he really spent most of
He
his
was
time
pretty
outside.
American, Father. He was at the World Series when the White Sox
Well,
won it. There's
that's
videos of it.
right. That's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
yeah.
So, but I think he'll be a great pope. I really, everything I hear, I've never met him, but everything I hear about him is so positive.
The role of a university president must be, amazingly complicated, balancing a lot of forces. How, sometimes I think we think of them as what did you call it, John? Fundraisers in chief?
Fundraisers in chief. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think
Like
that's
how do those missions get balanced, and what guided you, and what, should theoretically guide university presidents in this?
Timmy. Why don't you give Father Jenkins your background in academia as well?
My
Some
background.
perspective. To say that he's holding a small Catholic grudge, Father, is an understatement. So,
Oh, the University of Wisconsin?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah, self censorship is not my strongest.
Yeah, yeah.
Timmy wouldn't be good in the military, Father Jenkins.
It is too
So
bad. I do think that, I mean, I've heard complaints that there's sort of enforced self-censorship, and I'm sure that's true at Notre Dame in some respects because maybe I don't know, but I hope we minimize that. I think that's just a bad thing.
yeah. I mean, it's a tricky one, because you want people to be respectful and thoughtful and careful in their words, but you also, you can't understand a good idea if it isn't expressed.
Exactly right.
Father, do you think I had taught on an adjunct level for a number of years, a dozen years, and then kept having children, so I had to grow up and get a big boy job. But to that end, Father, do you think university presidents, and I ask because one of your predecessors, Father Hesburgh, is not only in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most honorary degrees, but was truly an advocate for social justice and was involved in presidential commissions and so forth. And the question I really have for you, Father, is do you think in 2025, I've noticed, and maybe it's just been there all the time, I think it's more challenging now than it ever has been, but do you think university presidents have lost their way, Father?
Well, I don't want to speak of my colleagues. I think it's there are pressures at state institutions, political pressures. There, are various pressures from faculty. I mean, I always felt, and with regard to Notre Dame, our greatest asset was our mission. We have a clear mission. You may not like it, but everyone knows who it is. And my job as president was simply to articulate that for our time and to do our best to live up to it. We'll certainly fall short. It's, but a Catholic mission and all that involves, not in a narrowly sectarian religious sense, but all the kind of richness that involves in terms of education, the whole person, in terms of attention to social issues, all those things. All that's part of Notre Dame. And my job was just to articulate that. And with regard to fundraising, I'll say, if you tell people what you're doing and it's authentic, that's how you fundraise effectively, because people want to be part of something that's worthwhile. And so, I felt I was blessed to be at Notre Dame, where we have a clarity of mission, and I could articulate that without apology. And I think that's that's perhaps our greatest asset.
That's great. I guess if you were to say, give advice to, I don't know, the head of a large flagship state university in the Midwest,
Yeah.
what might you tell them?
Well, I don't know. It's that you have a lot of bosses and more as a state president, because you have the state legislature, the faculty, the students' business interests, and so you have to navigate those. But I'd rather go out with clarity, articulating their vision. And if they fire me, fine. But embrace that you're the spokesperson in chief. You're the only one that can articulate that mission. And so do that. And then if they fire you, great. Just go on to the next thing.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Father, after John Glenn, I have one or two last questions. We'll let you go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute delight.
Yes.
John Glenn, the astronaut, and America has a love affair with astronauts as it relates to politicians. In 1984, they asked him, he said, did you enjoy running for president? And he said, well, I got whooped. I put on 20 pounds. He said, the one thing I can say now is I never have to ask anybody for money for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And talking to you just briefly, and you did a wonderful job. Is there something, A, that was your most proud accomplishment at Notre Dame as president? And B, are you enjoying not being president, meaning going back to scholarship and being a professor and such? Tell us a little bit about that, sir.
Well, I'd say, and I do mean this, people talk about the buildings, the money or whatever, but my proudest accomplishment is we were able to sort of make progress on three things that are critical to Notre Dame. First, undergraduate education has always been the source, the core of our commitment, and I think we're better now than we were, though we were great when you guys were undergraduates. I think it's even stronger now. Secondly, I think we grew dramatically in research, and we joined the AAU, which is a very prestigious group, and that's great. But all of that was combined with the Catholic mission. I think we managed to kind of to articulate a mission that's distinctive, that's clear, and we didn't step back because of advances in research or other things. And so it's holding those three things together is both the strength of Notre Dame and the most difficult thing at Notre Dame. And I'm proud that I'm proud of how we made progress on all three fronts.
Are you enjoying retirement, sir? You're not retired, but you're not president.
Well, yeah, I'm enjoying teaching and enjoying, spending more time, having more time to spend with two students. You miss the excitement, you miss being in the center of the action, but it's nice to be able to read books and talk to students too. So each stage in life has its blessings and its gifts, and I'm trying to enjoy the ones I have right now.
Are you a sports fan? Do you go to all the athletic events, Father?
I live and die Notre Dame football.
And I can. Well. Okay, so it's not just me, Father. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's one thing I learned about as president of Notre Dame is that if football team is winning, everybody's in a good mood, and other things go much more smoothly. If it's not, it's the opposite. So I'm happy when they win, and I know all the people involved, so I like to see them have success.
Absolutely. And to that end, and this will be my final question, Timmy, and I'll pass it to you. Do you have a sense? I think Marcus Freeman is the guy, for lack of a better term, and what an impressive individual. Yeah. And talk about a Catholic mission. I think he has 7 children. Correct me if I'm wrong, Father.
He has 7 children. Yep.
Yeah. But do you think it's in his tenure we're going to win another national title? Am I wrong?
Absolutely. We'll win one in the next 3 years, 5 years at most, but I predict next 3 years.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I say my proudest achievement is my successful marriage and my children. But if Notre Dame wins a national title, just give me a day before I respond. That's all.
Yeah, right.
So,
right.
Yeah. It's in our blood, John. You just can't.
It's really sad if you actually think about it, Father. It
It
really
is.
is. And I started to almost cry, and my 14-year-old looks at me and goes, "Are you crying, Dad?" I said, "No."
Yeah,
When we beat Georgia, I said, "Nope, nope,"
yeah,
and I walked
yeah,
away.
yeah.
You know,
I
it's
cried
really.
last Saturday.
We don't have to talk about that, Father.
Yeah,
I'm also Catholic. I'm a big believer in burying it down deep, and if you don't talk
yeah.
about it, it doesn't exist. So,
Right, right.
Timmy,
Well, yeah. Well, Father, I just want to thank you for taking the
Yeah.
time to chat with us. We really appreciate it. Respect the dialogue and the mission, and just thank you very much.
Well, I will say that, people ask me what I'm proud of at Notre Dame. I'm most proud of our graduates, and I'm proud of you two guys, proud of the friendship you've been able to maintain over many years, proud of the accomplishments you've had. Tim, you've had remarkable accomplishments. So you are what Notre Dame is about, and it's a joy to talk to both of you.
Well,
here, Father. He
thank you,
is what
Father.
Notre Dame's about.
And
Both.
Hey,
John.
Father, did you wanna offer a hero this week or a whack job?
Well,
You have carte blanche, Father.
I think you might hear you two guys. Seriously, I mean, just you and all the
Really?
Notre Dame people who do great work in the world and keep friendships and talk across differences. So you and all the other alumni are my heroes. And as far as wag jobs, no, I'm gonna take a pass on
Because we can be those too sometimes.
that.
We're that
Yeah,
in equal portions,
Yeah,
Father. So thank
yeah,
you. That's
yeah.
very humbling. I
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much. Yeah.
Two things have
I
happened in the
mean,
last hour that I never thought. I never thought I'd be called a hero, and I never thought I got a personal phone call from the former president of Notre Dame. So
well,
thank you, Father.
it's
Yeah.
my privilege. Great talking to you
All
guys.
right.
And
Take
you
care,
as well,
sir.
Father. Have a great evening, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. Well, John, that was great. Father Jenkins was, a lot of good ideas. The mission of Notre Dame came through. Man, I appreciated his time.
He was very clear about that, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by that in a good way, by that response about his proudest mission, because he said it's very clear. He said you may not agree with it, but it's very clear what our mission is, and I respect the heck out of that.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were there in 1994 and they were doing the welcoming, and my father had pointed out two things. He said Notre Dame is like a clock; they run exactly on time. And number two, they're going to tell you what they stand for. You may not agree with it, but welcome. And I remember that distinctly. And I think Father Jenkins that came across tonight, and what a fascinating guy. You can tell he's brilliant. He really loves Notre Dame. The fact that he made me feel better about myself, though, because he loves Notre Dame football clearly as much as I do.
Oh yeah.
And I think he and I both recognize deep down it really is sad, but my gosh. So, but just an impressive fellow. Any additional thoughts, though, from the interview? Anything that jumped out at you, Timmy?
Well, I think it's, I liked how he expressed thoughts on dialogue and reaching out, and we need that more than ever these days. So I think we need to keep talking, and I'm glad he did that with us.
Did you notice he was talking about, coordinated, that certain people didn't want certain things to happen and it wasn't spontaneous. I was actually surprised. But when you become the president of Notre Dame, one of the, biggest universities in the country, and it has a distinctly Catholic mission, you got a big target on your back. And so, when they invited Obama and so forth, and when he talked about the mask and so forth, and Justice Barrett, I was surprised. He was very candid about if I was president right now, would I invite a politician? Maybe not. It just wouldn't be worth the headache. So I appreciated that. But he did stress dialogue is key. Did he not?
Yeah, and it's also sort of an inverse of how I close, right? If everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. So if you're doing something worthwhile, not everybody's going to like what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, that's a fair point. So, well, listen, Timmy, you have a great week, pal. I really enjoyed that. Let's go Irish. Let's get our first W this weekend. And this is John Boland signing off, saying, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances.
And this is Tim saying, if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Let's keep talking.